Hello there, and welcome to Midnight Science. I'm so glad you found your way here. Tonight, we're traveling to the Amazon rainforest, not with our feet, but with our minds. Gently, slowly, like mist settling over green canopies at dawn. The Amazon is more than trees and rivers. It's a living cathedral of sound, movement, and mystery. It breathes, it hums, it holds secrets older than human memory and creatures so strange they seem borrowed from dreams. Some of what you'll hear tonight may change how you see the world. Other facts might drift by softly, like leaves on dark water, settling somewhere deep in your thoughts where wonder lives. If this kind of peaceful exploration brings you comfort or sparks your curiosity, consider liking and subscribing. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. Also, I'd love to know where you're tuning in from and what time it is there. It's always wonderful to see how these videos bring people together from all around the world. Now, let your shoulders drop, let the world fade, and let's begin. The Amazon creates its own weather. The Amazon rainforest doesn't simply receive rain from the sky and wait patiently for the next storm. It makes its own weather. Each day, as sunlight filters through the canopy and warms the leaves, billions of trees release moisture into the air through tiny pores in a process called transpiration. This isn't a small contribution. It's an enormous, continuous exchange. The forest exhales water vapor constantly, and that moisture rises, cools, and condenses into clouds that drift back over the canopy. These clouds release rain, which feeds the forest below, and the cycle begins again. The Amazon generates so much of its own precipitation that it's sometimes called a rain machine. Scientists estimate that the forest recycles rainfall up to 6 times as it moves from east to west across the basin. This means that the same water molecule might fall, be absorbed by roots, rise through a tree, be released into the air, and fall again, over and over. This self-sustaining loop doesn't just affect the Amazon. It influences weather patterns across South America and even sends moisture across the Atlantic to Africa. Rivers flow in the sky here, invisible but immense, carrying more water than the Amazon River itself. The forest is not a place separate from the atmosphere. It is part of it, breathing in rhythm with the planet. A green lung exhaling clouds, mist, and life into the air above. The Amazon River flows backwards. Twice a day, the Amazon River is the largest river by volume on Earth, discharging more water into the ocean than the next 7 largest rivers combined. But in some of its tributaries, something remarkable happens twice each day. The river flows backwards. This phenomenon occurs near the river's mouth, where the Atlantic Ocean meets the Amazon. During high tide, the ocean's water pushes inland with such force that it reverses the flow of certain tributaries for hours at a time. Local people have known about this tidal bore for centuries, but it still captures the imagination. A river that powerful, that ancient, bending to the rhythm of the moon. The tide doesn't just stop the current, it overwhelms it, sending saltwater miles upstream, creating a temporary boundary where fresh and salt water mix. Fish, dolphins, and even plants have adapted to this shifting world, thriving in the space between river and sea. And then, as the tide recedes, the river remembers its path and flows forward again, carrying sediment, nutrients, and life toward the ocean. It's a reminder that even the mightiest forces on Earth are part of larger rhythms, cycles within cycles, pulling and releasing, rising and falling like breath. There are pink dolphins in the Amazon deep, in the murky waters of the Amazon River and its tributaries. A creature glides that seems almost mythical. The Amazon River dolphin, known locally as the boto, is pink. Not always brightly so, but enough to stand out in the dark water. Young dolphins are grey, but as they mature, many develop a rosy hue, especially the males. The colour comes from blood vessels close to the skin, visible through their thin, translucent outer layer. These dolphins are unlike their ocean cousins. They have long, narrow snouts filled with teeth for catching fish entangled underwater roots. Their necks are flexible, allowing them to turn their heads from side to side, a rare trait among dolphins. And they navigate the flooded forest with remarkable skill, using echolocation to avoid trees and roots submerged during the rainy season. In local legends, the boto is said to transform into a handsome man who emerges from the river at night dressed in white to charm villagers at festivals. The stories vary, but they share a common thread. The boto is magical, mysterious, and worthy of respect. And in the quiet flow of the river, where light barely penetrates and the water is the color of tea, the pink dolphin moves like a living whisper, ancient and strange. The forest floor is surprisingly dark. When you imagine the Amazon rainforest, you might picture vibrant greenery flooded with sunlight. But walk into the forest itself, beneath the canopy, and you'll find something different. Darkness, or at least a soft, muted dimness. The canopy above is so dense, so layered with leaves, vines, and branches, that only about 1 to 2% of sunlight reaches the forest floor. This creates a world of shadows, cool and hushed. The air is thick with moisture. Sounds are dampened, and the light that does filter through comes in scattered beams, shifting as leaves move in the breeze high above. Because of this deep shade, the forest floor is not as overgrown as you might expect. There's space to walk, though the ground is covered in roots, fallen logs, and a carpet of decomposing leaves. Plants at ground level have adapted to survive in low light. Many have large, broad leaves to capture every photon. Others climb, sending vines upward toward the brightness above. And still others wait, dormant, for a gap to open in the canopy when a tree falls and sunlight suddenly floods in. In the dimness, life is patient. It doesn't rush. It simply waits for its moment. And when that moment comes, it grows with quiet ferocity. The Amazon is home to 1 in 10 known species. If you could gather every species of plant, animal, fungus, and microbe currently known to science and line them up, 1 in 10 would come from the Amazon. That's how rich this ecosystem is. In a single square kilometer of rainforest, you might find more species of trees than in all of North America. A single tree might host hundreds of insect species. A river might contain more types of fish than all the rivers of Europe combined. This isn't just abundance, it's overwhelming, dizzying diversity. Scientists estimate that there are still millions of species in the Amazon yet to be discovered. Many live in the canopy, which remains one of the least explored habitats on Earth. Others are microscopic, hidden in soil, water, or the digestive systems of larger creatures. Each one plays a role, however small, in the great web of interactions that keeps the forest functioning. To walk through the Amazon is to walk through a living library, where every leaf, every flutter, every ripple in the water holds information. Some of it we can read. Most of it we're only beginning to understand. And in that mystery, there's a strange comfort. The world is not fully known. It still has secrets, and some of them live quietly in the green shadows of the Amazon. Leafcutter ants are farmers. In long, winding columns, leafcutter ants march through the Amazon, carrying pieces of green leaves above their heads like tiny umbrellas. It's one of the forest's most iconic sights. But these ants aren't eating the leaves, they're farming. Each fragment is carried underground to vast fungal gardens, where the leaves are chewed into a pulp and used as compost. The fungus grows on this compost, and the ants harvest it for food. This relationship is ancient, evolving over millions of years. The fungus doesn't exist anywhere else in the wild. It depends entirely on the ants to survive, and the ants, in turn, depend on the fungus. A single colony can contain millions of individuals, all working in synchronized cooperation. Some cut leaves, some carry them, some tend the gardens, others defend the nest, and at the center, a queen lays eggs, sustaining the colony for decades. The ants even manage diseases in their gardens, removing infected fungus and applying antibiotics produced by bacteria they cultivate on their own bodies. It's a three-way partnership: ant, fungus, and bacteria, working together in underground chambers lit only by bioluminescence and the faint glow of decay. Farmers in the truest sense, cultivating life in the dark, patient and tireless. The canopy is an undiscovered world. Most of the Amazon's life doesn't live on the ground. It lives in the canopy, the dense layer of treetops 30 to 45 meters above the forest floor. This is where sunlight is abundant, where flowers bloom, fruits ripen, and countless creatures make their homes. But for most of human history, this world was almost completely inaccessible. Too high to reach from below, too fragile to build on, it remained a mystery. In recent decades, scientists have developed new ways to explore the canopy. Rope systems, cranes, even hot air balloons and drones. What they found is astonishing. The canopy is not just a collection of treetops. It's a distinct ecosystem, with its own climate, its own food webs, and species found nowhere else. Frogs that never touch the ground, snakes that glide between branches, plants that grow on other plants, their roots never reaching soil. Some trees have evolved flat, spreading crowns to capture as much light as possible. Others grow tall and narrow, competing for space. Vines called lianas weave through the branches, connecting trees and creating highways for monkeys, sloths, and birds. And at night, the canopy comes alive with sounds. Howler monkeys calling, insects buzzing, frogs singing. A chorus rising from the treetops, unseen but ever present. Poison dart frogs get their toxins from their diet, bright, bold, and impossibly colorful. Poison dart frogs are among the Amazon's most striking residents. Their skin gleams in shades of electric blue, brilliant yellow, fiery orange, or deep red. These colors are not just beautiful, they're warnings. Many species secrete potent toxins through their skin, enough to sicken or even kill predators. Some indigenous groups once used these toxins to coat the tips of blow darts, giving the frogs their common name. But here's the surprising part. The frogs don't produce the poison themselves. They get it from their diet. In the wild, they eat ants, mites, and other small arthropods that contain toxic alkaloids. the frogs absorb and concentrate these chemicals in specialized skin glands. In captivity, where their diet is different, poison dart frogs lose their toxicity over time. They're still brightly colored, but no longer dangerous. This means the frogs are more than just carriers of poison. They're accumulators, gatherers of chemical defenses from the tiny creatures they consume. It's a reminder that every animal is shaped not just by its genes, but by its environment, its food, and the intricate web of relationships that sustains it. A frog is not an island. It's a mosaic, built piece by piece from the forest around it. Jaguars are powerful swimmers. In the dense undergrowth and along riverbanks, the jaguar moves like liquid shadow. It's the largest cat in the Americas, powerfully built, with jaws strong enough to crush turtle shells and pierce the skulls of prey. But unlike most big cats, the jaguar is also an exceptional swimmer. It doesn't avoid water. It seeks it out, diving into rivers to hunt fish, caimans, and even capybaras. Jaguars have been observed swimming across wide rivers and hunting in flooded forests during the rainy season. Their muscular bodies and large paws make them surprisingly graceful in the water. They stalk the riverbanks at dusk, watching for movement, then slip silently into the current. Sometimes they ambush caimans from behind, biting through the skull in a single, devastating strike. In indigenous mythology, the jaguar is often a symbol of power, transformation, and the boundary between worlds. It walks on land, swims in water, and climbs trees. It moves between realms, equally at home in all of them. And in the quiet hours of dawn or dusk, when mist rises from the river and the forest is still waking, the jaguar is there, unseen but ever present, a reminder that the Amazon is still wild. The Amazon has more than 1,000 tributaries. The Amazon River is vast, but it doesn't flow alone. It's fed by more than 1,000 tributaries, some of which are massive rivers in their own right. The Madeira, the Negro, the Tapajós. Each brings water, sediment, and life from different regions, converging in a network so complex, it resembles the branching of veins or the roots of an enormous tree. Some of these tributaries are whitewater rivers, carrying sediment from the Andes and appearing muddy or tan. Others are blackwater rivers, stained dark by decaying plant matter, giving them a tea-like color. And still others are clear water rivers, originating from ancient rock formations and flowing with remarkable transparency. When these rivers meet, they don't immediately mix. Instead, they flow side by side for miles, creating visible boundaries where different colored waters run parallel. This mixing, or lack of it, creates distinct ecological zones. Fish and other organisms often prefer one type of water over another, so the boundaries between tributaries become natural divides. Over time, the waters blend, but slowly, reluctantly, like two languages merging into one. And in that blending, the Amazon becomes what it is, not a single river, but a union of many, each contributing its own character to the whole. Anacondas can hold their breath for 10 minutes. In the slow-moving waters and swamps of the Amazon, the green anaconda waits. It's one of the largest snakes in the world, reaching lengths of over 20 feet and weighing hundreds of pounds. Despite its size, it moves through water with eerie grace, almost invisible beneath the surface. Its eyes and nostrils sit on top of its head, allowing it to see and breathe while the rest of its body remains submerged. Anacondas are ambush predators. They lie motionless in murky water, waiting for prey to come close. Capybaras, caimans, birds, even deer. When the moment is right, they strike with explosive speed, coiling around their victim and squeezing. The constriction doesn't crush bones. It stops circulation, cutting off blood flow to the brain and heart. Death comes quickly, quietly. After a large meal, an anaconda may not eat again for weeks or even months. It retreats to a quiet spot to digest, its metabolism slowing, its body focused entirely on breaking down the massive meal. During this time, it's vulnerable, sluggish, and deeply still. But in the water, coiled and waiting, the anaconda is one of the Amazon's most patient and powerful hunters, a creature of silence, strength, and sudden violence. Harpy eagles are among the world's most powerful raptors, high in the canopy, where sunlight filters through and the air is filled with the calls of monkeys and parrots. The harpy eagle hunts. It's one of the largest and most powerful eagles on Earth, with talons the size of grizzly bear claws and a grip strong enough to crush bone. Its name comes from Greek mythology, from the harpies, winged spirits known for their speed and ferocity. Harpy eagles specialize in hunting tree-dwelling mammals, especially sloths and monkeys. They navigate the dense canopy with remarkable agility, weaving between branches at high speed. Once they've spotted prey, they strike with precision, snatching the animal from the trees and carrying it away, sometimes while it's still alive. Their strength is such that they can lift prey weighing as much as they do, carrying it through the forest with barely a pause. But harpy eagles are also rare. They require vast territories and they reproduce slowly, raising just one chick every 2 to 3 years. Deforestation has shrunk their habitat, and sightings are increasingly uncommon. Yet in the places where they still soar, they remain symbols of the forest's wildness, apex predators that ruled the sky above the green cathedral of the Amazon. Trees communicate through fungal networks. Beneath the soil, where roots stretch and intertwine, a hidden conversation unfolds. Trees in the Amazon, like forests around the world, are connected by underground fungal networks. These networks, formed by mycorrhizal fungi, link the roots of different trees, allowing them to exchange nutrients, water, and even chemical signals. It's sometimes called the Wood Wide Web, a living internet made not of wires, but of fungal threads. Through these networks, older trees can send sugars to younger saplings struggling in the shade. Trees under attack by insects can send warning signals to their neighbors, prompting them to produce defensive chemicals. And when a tree is dying, it may transfer its remaining resources to nearby trees, a final gift before it falls. This isn't altruism in the human sense. It's survival strategy, shaped by millions of years of evolution. The fungi benefit too. In exchange for connecting trees, they receive sugars produced through photosynthesis. It's a partnership, ancient and essential. And in the quiet darkness beneath the forest floor, this network hums with activity, invisible but ever present. A web of life that binds the forest into a single, breathing organism. Bullet ants have the most painful sting. In the Amazon, there are many creatures to be wary of, but one stands out for a very specific reason. The bullet ant, named for the sensation its sting produces, is said to deliver the most painful insect sting on Earth. Those who've been stung describe it as feeling like being shot, a searing, throbbing pain that can last for hours, sometimes more than a day. The pain is caused by a potent neurotoxin called ponerotoxin, which affects nerve endings and causes intense, unrelenting agony. Unlike bee stings, which fade relatively quickly, bullet ant stings can cause waves of pain that pulse through the body, leaving victims shaking and nauseous. The ants themselves are large, about an inch long and reddish black. They live in colonies at the bases of trees and are generally not aggressive unless their nest is disturbed. In some indigenous cultures, young men undergoing initiation rites are required to wear gloves lined with bullet ants, enduring hundreds of stings as a test of endurance and courage. It's a ritual that has been practiced for generations, a way of proving strength and readiness for adulthood. The ants, for their part, are simply defending their home, but the memory of their sting lingers, a sharp reminder of the Amazon's capacity to both awe and humble. The Amazon was once an ocean. Long before trees, before rivers, before the first human ever set foot in the Amazon, this land was underwater. Around 15 million years ago, much of the Amazon basin was covered by a vast inland sea connected to the Pacific Ocean. Over millions of years, as the Andes Mountains rose to the west, they blocked the flow of water, and the sea gradually transformed into a massive freshwater lake. Eventually, the lake found a new outlet to the east, carving a path toward the Atlantic, and the Amazon River as we know it was born. But traces of that ancient sea remain. Fossils of marine creatures, dolphins, sharks, rays, have been found deep in the jungle, far from any coast. Certain fish species in the Amazon are more closely related to marine fish than to other freshwater species, evidence of their oceanic ancestry. The land remembers. Beneath the soil, in the stones, in the shapes of river valleys, the history of the Amazon is written. It's a story of transformation, of water seeking new paths, of life adapting to change again and again. What is now forest was once sea. What is solid was once fluid. And in time, it will change again. Sloths move so slowly that algae grows on their fur. High in the trees, moving with a slowness that borders on stillness, the sloth lives a life of profound calm. It's one of the slowest mammals on Earth, traveling just a few meters per day. Its metabolism is equally slow, digesting a single meal over the course of a month. Everything about the sloth is adapted for energy conservation, from its low body temperature to its deliberate, almost meditative movements. This slowness has an unexpected side effect. Algae grows on the sloth's fur, giving it a greenish tint that helps it blend into the canopy. The algae benefits from the stable, moist environment the sloth provides, and the sloth benefits from the camouflage. It's a quiet, unintentional partnership. Moths live in the sloth's fur too, laying their eggs in its dung and feeding on the algae that grows on its back. Sloths descend from the trees just once a week, slowly, carefully, to defecate at the base of their preferred tree. Why they don't simply let waste fall from above is still a mystery. But some scientists believe it helps fertilize the tree that feeds them, maintaining the cycle of nutrients. In this way, the sloth is not just an inhabitant of the forest, it's part of its machinery, slow, steady, and essential. Piranhas are mostly scavengers. The piranha has a fearsome reputation, fed by movies and myths of schools of fish stripping flesh from bone in seconds. But the reality is far less dramatic. Most piranhas are scavengers, feeding primarily on dead fish, insects, and plant matter. They have sharp teeth and strong jaws, yes, but they use them mostly to nibble, tear and chew, not to attack in frenzied swarms. There are over 60 species of piranhas, and they vary widely in behavior and diet. Some are herbivores, eating seeds and fruits that fall into the water. Others are opportunistic feeders, taking whatever they can find. Attacks on humans are extremely rare and usually occur only when the fish are cornered, starving, or protecting nests. In normal conditions, piranhas are wary of large animals and prefer to keep their distance. Still, their teeth are remarkable. Each tooth is triangular, razor sharp, and interlocking with its neighbors like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. When a piranha bites, the teeth lock together, creating a powerful cutting edge. But for most of their lives, piranhas use this tool not for violence, but for survival, quietly cleaning the river of decay and helping maintain the balance of life in the water. The Amazon rainforest absorbs massive amounts of carbon. Every tree in the Amazon is a quiet miracle of chemistry. Through photosynthesis, it pulls carbon dioxide from the air and uses sunlight to transform it into sugars, building its body from the sky itself. The byproduct, oxygen, is released back into the atmosphere. This process happens in billions of trees, day after day, year after year, making the Amazon one of the planet's most important carbon sinks. Scientists estimate that the Amazon absorbs around 2 billion tons of carbon dioxide annually, helping to regulate the Earth's climate. The carbon is stored in trunks, branches, roots, and soil, locked away for decades or even centuries. But this balance is fragile. When trees are cut down or burned, that stored carbon is released back into the atmosphere, contributing to climate change. Deforestation doesn't just remove trees, it releases ghosts, invisible plumes of carbon that were once solid wood. The Amazon is often called the lungs of the earth, though that metaphor isn't quite accurate. Lungs take in oxygen and release carbon dioxide. The forest does the opposite. It's more like a living filter, scrubbing the air clean, storing away what would otherwise warm the planet. And as long as the forest stands, it continues this work, silently, steadily, breath by breath. The Victoria Amazonica lily pad can hold a small child, floating serenely on the surface of slow-moving rivers and oxbow lakes. The Victoria Amazonica water lily is one of the Amazon's most iconic plants. Its lily pads can grow over 2 meters in diameter, large enough to support the weight of a small child if distributed carefully. The underside of each pad is reinforced with a network of ribs and air pockets, giving it both buoyancy and strength. The flowers are equally impressive. They bloom at night, opening white and fragrant to attract beetles. By the second night, the flower turns pink, signaling that it's been pollinated and no longer offers nectar. The beetles, covered in pollen from the previous night's flower, move on to a fresh white bloom, continuing the cycle. After pollination, the flower closes and sinks beneath the surface, where seeds develop in the quiet darkness below. The lily pad structure has inspired architects and engineers. Its radiating ribs and lightweight design are remarkably efficient, distributing weight and stress across the entire surface. Nature, it seems, solved problems of engineering long before humans began building bridges and domes. And in the still waters of the Amazon, the lily pad floats, patient and elegant, a living platform holding flowers, beetles, and the occasional frog. Caimans are the Amazon's crocodilians. Along riverbanks and in shallow wetlands, caimans wait. These reptiles are close relatives of alligators and crocodiles, but they're native to Central and South America. Several species live in the Amazon, ranging from the small and relatively harmless spectacled caiman to the massive black caiman, which can grow over 16 feet long and weigh more than 800 pounds. Caimans are ambush predators, lying motionless at the water's edge or drifting just beneath the surface, only their eyes and nostrils visible. When prey comes within range, they strike with sudden explosive speed. Their diet includes fish, birds, mammals, and occasionally other caimans. Larger individuals have been known to take down capybaras, tapirs, and even jaguars that venture too close to the water. Despite their fearsome appearance, caimans play an essential role in the ecosystem. They control fish populations, recycle nutrients, and create habitats for other species. The pools they dig during the dry season become refuges for fish and amphibians, and their nests, built from vegetation and mud, provide warmth for eggs that might otherwise be eaten. In the quiet flow of the river, the caiman is both predator and gardener, shaping the world around it with patience and power. The kapok tree towers. Above the canopy, rising above the dense green ceiling of the rainforest, the kapok tree stands as a giant among giants. It can grow over 60 meters tall, its massive trunk buttressed by wide, spreading roots that fan out like the fins of a rocket. These buttresses provide stability in the shallow, nutrient-poor soil of the rainforest, anchoring the tree against wind and storms. The kapok is one of the emergent trees, a term for species that break through the canopy and tower above the rest. Up here, the air is different. It's windier, drier, and brighter. Birds of prey nest in the highest branches. Epiphytes, plants that grow on other plants, cover the trunk and limbs, creating miniature gardens suspended in the air. And during the dry season, the kapok produces large seed pods filled with silky fibers that drift on the wind, carrying the tree's offspring far and wide. Indigenous peoples have long revered the kapok tree. In some cultures, it's considered sacred, a bridge between the earth and the sky, the physical and the spiritual. Its wood is light and buoyant, used for canoes and carvings. Its fibers once filled life jackets and pillows. But more than anything, the kapok is a landmark, a quiet sentinel that has watched over the forest for hundreds of years, and with luck, will watch for hundreds more. Electric eels can generate 600 volts. In the murky waters of the Amazon and Orinoco basins, the electric eel glides, a creature that seems plucked from science fiction. Despite its name, it's not actually an eel. It's a type of knifefish, more closely related to catfish than to true eels. But what makes it remarkable is its ability to generate electricity, up to 600 volts, enough to stun a horse or incapacitate a human. The electric eel produces electricity using specialized cells called electrocytes, stacked in rows along its body like batteries in series. When hunting, it releases a series of high-voltage pulses that paralyze prey, usually fish and amphibians. It can also use lower voltage pulses for navigation and communication, creating an electric field around its body and sensing distortions caused by nearby objects. In the dark, silty water where vision is useless, this electroreception is invaluable. The eel must surface every few minutes to breathe air, as it relies more on its lungs than its gills. It rises slowly, takes a gulp, and descends again, continuing its quiet patrol of the riverbed. For centuries, indigenous people feared and respected the electric eel, and even today, encounters are rare and cautiously handled. It's a reminder that the Amazon holds creatures whose abilities stretch the boundaries of what seems possible. There are over 2,500 species of trees in a single hectare. In temperate forests, you might find a dozen tree species in a given area. In the Amazon, the number can exceed 300, sometimes even reaching 500 different species in a single hectare. That's an area about the size of 2 football fields. The diversity is overwhelming, humbling, and still not fully catalogued. Every expedition into the Amazon reveals new species, new variations, new mysteries. This diversity isn't random. It's the result of millions of years of evolution, competition, and adaptation. Trees have specialized to occupy every possible niche. Some grow fast and die young, racing to capture light in newly opened gaps. Others grow slowly, investing in dense wood and chemical defenses, waiting decades to reach maturity. Some produce fruits that attract birds. Others rely on bats, rodents, or the wind. This variety creates resilience. If a disease or pest targets one species, others survive. If a drought favors deep-rooted trees, shallow-rooted species wait for the rains to return. The forest is not a monoculture. It's a tapestry woven from thousands of threads, each contributing to the whole. And in that complexity, the Amazon finds its strength, its ability to endure, to adapt, and to thrive. The glass frog has translucent skin, perched delicately on a leaf overhanging a stream. The glass frog is almost invisible. Its skin is so translucent that you can see through it to the organs inside. The heart beating, the liver processing, the eggs developing in a female's body. It's not fully transparent, more like frosted glass, but it's enough to break up the frog's outline and make it difficult for predators to spot. This transparency is most pronounced on the frog's underside. From above, it appears green, blending with the leaves. But from below, looking up, a predator sees only hints of shape, soft shadows against the light filtering through the canopy. It's a form of camouflage that works in 3 dimensions, hiding the frog from threats above and below. Glass frogs lay their eggs on leaves, usually above water. When the tadpoles hatch, they drop into the stream below, where they continue their development. The males guard the eggs, keeping them moist and fending off predators. It's a delicate existence, balanced on the edge of life and death, but the glass frog has mastered it, turning fragility into an advantage and transparency into survival. The Amazon is losing trees faster than ever. For all its vastness, the Amazon is not untouchable. Every year, thousands of square kilometers of forest are lost to deforestation, cleared for cattle ranching, soy farming, logging, and mining. Satellite images show the change clearly. Green patches turning brown, rivers becoming wider and more exposed, the network of roads spreading like veins through the forest. The loss of trees has consequences that ripple far beyond the Amazon. It disrupts the water cycle, reducing rainfall not just locally, but across the continent. It releases stored carbon into the atmosphere, accelerating climate change. It destroys habitats, pushing countless species toward extinction. And it threatens indigenous communities whose cultures and livelihoods depend on the forest. But there is hope. Conservation efforts are expanding. Indigenous land rights are being recognized and defended. Reforestation projects are taking root. And more people around the world are realizing that the Amazon is not just South America's forest. It's a global resource, a shared inheritance, and its survival is tied to the survival of us all. The forest has endured ice ages, droughts, and floods. The question now is whether it can endure us. Army ants march in columns, millions strong. In the leaf litter and undergrowth, a river flows that is not made of water, but of ants. Army ants move through the forest in massive columns, sometimes numbering in the millions. They have no permanent nest, no fixed home. Instead, they're nomadic, marching through the forest in search of food, setting up temporary camps or bivouacs made entirely of their own bodies. As they march, they consume everything in their path: insects, spiders, scorpions, small vertebrates. Nothing that can't escape is spared. Other creatures have learned to follow the columns. Birds hover overhead, snapping up insects fleeing the ants. Butterflies sip from the droppings left behind. Even some beetles mimic the ants' chemical signals, infiltrating the colony to steal food or prey on larvae. The coordination of an army ant colony is extraordinary. There's no central command, no general directing the troops. Instead, each ant follows simple rules. Follow the pheromone trail, attack anything that moves, protect the queen. From these simple behaviors, complex patterns emerge: branching trails, efficient foraging, rapid redistribution of workers. It's a form of intelligence that exists not in individuals, but in the collective, a living algorithm written in scent and motion. The Hotsin bird smells like manure. In the branches overhanging rivers and swamps, a strange bird perches, clumsy and ungainly. The Hotsin is about the size of a chicken, with a spiky crest and bright blue face. It flies poorly, preferring to climb through branches with its clawed wings, remnants of an evolutionary past. But what truly sets it apart is its smell. The Hotsin smells like manure or compost, earning it the nickname stinkbird. This odor comes from its unique digestive system. Unlike most birds, which have simple, fast-acting digestion, the Hotsin ferments leaves in a specialized crop, similar to how cows digest grass. Bacteria break down the tough plant material, producing nutrients, but also creating gases and that distinctive smell. This fermentation makes the Hotsin one of the only birds to subsist almost entirely on leaves, but it comes at a cost. The fermentation chamber takes up so much space that there's little room for flight muscles, making the bird a poor flyer. Young Hotsins are born with claws on their wings, which they use to climb back into trees if they fall into the water. As they mature, these claws disappear. The Hotsin is a living fossil, a glimpse into ancient avian lineages, strange, smelly, and uniquely adapted to life in the flooded forests of the Amazon. Capybaras are the world's largest rodents. Along the riverbanks, moving in small family groups, capybaras graze peacefully. They're the largest rodents on Earth, weighing up to 140 pounds and resembling oversized guinea pigs. Their bodies are barrel-shaped, their legs short and sturdy, and their feet partially webbed for swimming. They're remarkably calm creatures, often seen resting in the sun or wallowing in mud to stay cool. Capybaras are highly social, living in groups of 10 to 20 individuals, sometimes more. They communicate through a variety of sounds: purrs, barks, whistles, and clicks. When danger approaches, usually in the form of jaguars, caimans, or anacondas, they emit a sharp bark and dash for the water, where they're surprisingly fast swimmers. They can hold their breath for up to 5 minutes, remaining submerged with only their eyes and nostrils above the surface. Despite their size, capybaras are gentle herbivores, feeding on grasses and aquatic plants. They're also coprophagic, meaning they eat their own feces to extract additional nutrients, a behavior common among rodents. Many other animals benefit from their presence. Birds perch on their backs, eating insects. Fish follow them in the water, feeding on particles they stir up. In the ecosystem of the Amazon, the capybara is a keystone species, quiet, unassuming, and essential. Strangler figs begin life in the canopy high in the branches of a host tree, a seed lands carried by a bird or monkey. It germinates not in soil, but on bark, sending roots downward through the air. This is the beginning of a strangler fig, one of the Amazon's most remarkable and ruthless plants. The roots descend slowly, sometimes taking years to reach the ground. Once they do, they anchor in the soil and begin to grow thicker, drawing nutrients from below. As the fig grows, it sends more roots down, and these roots gradually encircle the host tree. Over decades, the fig's roots fuse together, forming a lattice that completely surrounds the trunk. The host tree, now starved of light and nutrients, weakens and eventually dies. Its wood rots away, leaving the strangler fig standing alone, a hollow network of roots and branches where a tree once stood. But the fig is more than a killer. Its fruit feeds countless animals, from monkeys and birds to bats and insects. Many species depend on figs as a reliable food source, especially during seasons when other fruits are scarce. And the hollow structure left behind becomes a habitat for cavity-nesting birds, mammals, and insects. The strangler fig gives as much as it takes, its life cycle intertwined with the lives of hundreds of other species. The Amazon River discharges 209,000 cubic meters of water per second stand at the mouth of the Amazon River, where it meets the Atlantic Ocean, and you'll witness one of the most powerful flows of water on Earth. Every second, the Amazon discharges roughly 209,000 cubic meters of water into the sea. That's about 55 million gallons per second, more than the next 7 largest rivers combined. This outflow is so massive that it pushes fresh water up to 100 miles out into the ocean, creating a lens of lower salinity water that floats on top of the denser salt water. Sailors have reported scooping up drinkable water from the ocean surface while still out of sight of land, a phenomenon known since the days of early European exploration. The sediment carried by the river is equally impressive, staining the ocean brown for miles around the mouth. This sediment, rich in nutrients, feeds marine ecosystems and travels on ocean currents to distant shores. In a very real sense, the Amazon doesn't end at the coast. It extends into the sea, shaping ecosystems far from the forest, carrying the memory of mountains, trees, and rain into the vast blue beyond. Poison dart frogs carry their tadpoles on their backs. After laying eggs on the forest floor, poison dart frog parents face a challenge. The tadpoles, once hatched, need water to complete their development, but there are no ponds or streams nearby. The solution is both simple and extraordinary. The parent, usually the male, allows the tadpoles to wriggle onto its back, where they cling to the moist skin. Then the frog begins to climb, up through the undergrowth, across branches, sometimes dozens of feet into the canopy. The frog ascends, carrying its precious cargo. Its destination is a bromeliad, a type of plant that grows on trees and collects rainwater in its central reservoir. Each bromeliad is like a tiny pond suspended in the air, and the frog deposits 1 or 2 tadpoles into each, ensuring they won't compete with one another. But the parents' work isn't done. The female returns every few days to lay unfertilized eggs into the water, providing food for the growing tadpoles. This level of parental care is rare among amphibians, and it speaks to the complexity of life in the rainforest, where resources are scattered and survival demands creativity, patience, and devotion. In the treetops, tiny frogs climb, carrying their future on their backs. The arapaima is one of the largest freshwater fish in the slow-moving rivers and flooded forests of the Amazon. A giant swims. The arapaima, also known as the pirarucu, is one of the largest freshwater fish in the world, reaching lengths of up to 10 feet and weighing over 400 pounds. Its body is covered in large, armor-like scales that protect it from piranhas and other predators. In fact, these scales are so tough that researchers have studied them for use in lightweight body armor. The arapaima is an air breather, rising to the surface every 10 to 20 minutes to gulp oxygen. This adaptation allows it to survive in oxygen-poor waters where other fish would struggle. When it surfaces, it makes a distinctive coughing sound, which fishermen use to locate them. Indigenous people have hunted arapaima for centuries, valuing both its meat and its scales, which were once used as tools and decorations. Overfishing nearly drove the arapaima to extinction in many areas. But conservation efforts, including community-managed fishing programs, have helped populations recover. The fish is now a symbol of sustainable resource management in the Amazon, proof that humans and nature can coexist when traditions, science, and respect for the ecosystem work together. Termites build mounds that regulate temperature. Rising from the forest floor like miniature cathedrals, termite mounds are among the Amazon's most impressive architectural achievements. Some stand over 10 feet tall, constructed entirely from soil, saliva, and feces. Inside, millions of termites live in a complex network of chambers and tunnels, tending fungus gardens, raising young, and maintaining the colony. What's most remarkable is the climate control. Despite the heat and humidity outside, the interior of a termite mound remains cool and well ventilated. The termites achieve this through careful design. Warm air rises through central chimneys and exits through pores at the top. Cooler air is drawn in from channels near the base. This passive ventilation system maintains a stable temperature and humidity level, perfect for the fungus they cultivate. The mounds are also incredibly strong, resistant to rain, wind, and even the weight of large animals. Some have stood for decades, outlasting the colonies that built them. When abandoned, they become homes for other creatures, snakes, lizards, frogs, and insects. In the cycle of the forest, even the most solid structures are temporary, eventually weathered back into soil, their materials recycled once again. Some orchids mimic female insects to attract pollinators. Orchids are masters of deception. In the Amazon, some species have evolved to look, smell, and even feel like female insects. When a male insect lands on the flower, expecting to mate, it instead gets covered in pollen. Realizing its mistake, the insect flies off, often to another flower of the same species, where it attempts to mate again, inadvertently pollinating the second flower. This strategy is precise and elaborate, The shape of the flower matches the insect's body. The scent mimics pheromones. Even the texture of the petals resembles the insect's mate. The orchid has evolved not just to attract the insect, but to manipulate its behavior with stunning specificity. Each species of orchid may target a different species of bee or wasp, ensuring that pollen is transferred only to compatible flowers. It's a form of mimicry so refined that it borders on artistry, and it works. The insects, driven by instinct, continue to visit the flowers, continue to be fooled, and continue to carry pollen from bloom to bloom. In the quiet dance of pollination, orchids have turned desire into a tool and confusion into survival. The Amazon River once flowed westward. Millions of years ago, the Amazon River flowed in the opposite direction. Instead of emptying into the Atlantic Ocean in the east, it flowed westward toward the Pacific. But around 10 to 15 million years ago, the Andes Mountains began to rise, a slow, inexorable uplift driven by tectonic forces. This rising wall of rock blocked the river's path, forcing it to change course. The water pooled, forming vast inland lakes and swamps. Over time, the river found a new outlet, carving its way eastward through the continent, eventually reaching the Atlantic. This shift had profound effects on the ecosystem. The climate changed, new habitats formed, species evolved and diversified. The Amazon, as we know it today, with its incredible biodiversity and vast river system, is a product of this ancient geological transformation. Even now, the river continues to change. It shifts its course, carves new channels, and deposits sediment that builds islands and sandbars. The Amazon is not fixed. It's a living system, always moving, always adapting, shaped by forces both ancient and immediate. And in its flow, we glimpse the deep time of the earth, where rivers are born, live, and sometimes even reverse their course. Macaws mate for life high above the canopy. A pair of scarlet macaws flies together, their brilliant red, blue, and yellow feathers flashing in the sunlight. These large, intelligent parrots form lifelong bonds with their mates, staying together year after year, often for decades. They're rarely seen alone. Where one goes, the other follows, flying side by side, feeding together, and preening each other's feathers in quiet moments of affection. Macaws communicate through loud, raucous calls that can be heard for miles. But between mates, their vocalizations are softer, more intimate. They nest in cavities high in trees, often returning to the same nest site year after year. Both parents care for the young, taking turns feeding and protecting them. The chicks are born blind and helpless, but within a few months, they're ready to fledge, launching themselves into the air for the first time. Macaws face threats from habitat loss and the illegal pet trade, and some species are critically endangered. But in the wild, they remain symbols of the Amazon's vibrancy and beauty, their colors, their calls, and their enduring partnerships. A reminder that even in a forest of millions, connection and loyalty can endure. The Amazon River has no bridges. Despite being the second longest river in the world and the largest by volume, the Amazon River has no bridges spanning its main channel. This isn't due to lack of engineering capability. It's a matter of practicality and circumstance. For most of its length, the river flows through dense, sparsely populated rainforest. There are few roads to connect, and even fewer cities on opposite banks. The river's width varies dramatically, from less than a mile in some places to over 30 miles during the wet season. Its depth fluctuates by as much as 40 feet between seasons. The banks shift, islands form and disappear, and the current is powerful and unpredictable. Building a bridge would be an enormous undertaking, and for the communities that live along the river, boats and ferries have always been sufficient. So the river flows uninterrupted, a vast highway of water connecting the interior of the continent to the sea. And in the absence of bridges, the river remains wild, unbound, a force that humans live alongside, but have not yet tried to span. Brazil nut trees can live for over 500 years. Towering over the forest floor, the Brazil nut tree is one of the Amazon's giants. It can grow over 50 meters tall and live for more than 500 years, sometimes even reaching 1,000. Its trunk is massive, straight, and branchless for much of its height, supporting a crown that spreads wide above the canopy. The tree produces large, round fruits that resemble coconuts. Inside each fruit are 10 to 25 seeds, the Brazil nuts we eat. But harvesting them is not simple. The fruit is so hard that only agoutis, a type of rodent with incredibly strong teeth, can crack it open. The agoutis eat some of the seeds and bury others for later. Many of these buried seeds are forgotten, and they eventually germinate, giving rise to new trees. Without agoutis, Brazil nut trees would struggle to reproduce, and without the trees, agoutis would lose a vital food source. It's a partnership millions of years in the making, a quiet collaboration that sustains both species. The tree, for all its size and age, depends on the small, scurrying rodent that lives at its feet. And in that dependence, we see once again how deeply interconnected the forest truly is. The Amazon basin holds 20% of Earth's fresh water. The Amazon basin is not just a forest. It's a vast reservoir, holding roughly 1/5 of all the fresh water on Earth. This water moves through rivers, streams, wetlands, and underground aquifers, cycling endlessly between sky, tree, soil, and sea. During the rainy season, huge areas of forest flood, creating a watery landscape where fish swim among the trees and dolphins hunt in the canopy's shadow. This abundance of water shapes everything. It creates habitats for aquatic and semi-aquatic species. It nourishes plants, animals, and microbes. It moderates temperature and humidity. And it connects the forest to the rest of the planet, as water that falls in the Amazon eventually evaporates, travels on winds, and falls again thousands of miles away. The Amazon's water is not confined to the basin. It flows through the atmosphere, carried on aerial rivers that dwarf the physical river below. These atmospheric currents transport moisture across South America, watering farms, forests, and cities far from the rainforest itself. The Amazon, in this sense, is not just a local ecosystem. It's a planetary life support system, quietly cycling the element that makes all life possible. Leafcutter ants can defoliate an entire tree in a single night. When a colony of leafcutter ants sets its sights on a tree, the outcome is inevitable. Thousands, sometimes millions of workers march in endless columns, climbing the trunk, spreading through the branches, and cutting leaves into manageable pieces. Each ant carries a fragment back to the nest, sometimes traveling hundreds of meters. By morning, a once lush tree can be stripped nearly bare. This might seem destructive, but the forest tolerates it. Trees have evolved defenses, chemical compounds that make their leaves less palatable, thicker cuticles that are harder to cut, and the ability to regrow leaves quickly. Some trees even produce new leaves only at certain times of year, when ant activity is lower. And the ants, for their part, rarely kill a tree. They prune it, removing foliage, but leaving the tree alive to grow new leaves. The relationship between leafcutter ants and trees is one of balance. The ants take what they need, and the forest absorbs the loss. In the underground chambers, the fungus gardens thrive, fed by fresh leaves, and the colony continues its work. Above ground, the tree recovers, its canopy filling in over weeks and months. Life continues, shaped by the constant push and pull of survival. Jaguars have the strongest bite of any big cat pound for pound. The jaguar has the most powerful bite of any big cat. Its jaws are built for crushing, capable of piercing turtle shells, crocodilian armor, and even the skulls of large prey. Unlike lions or tigers, which typically kill by suffocation, biting the throat or muzzle, jaguars often kill with a single bite to the skull, a swift, brutal end that reflects their immense jaw strength. This adaptation makes sense in the context of the Amazon, where many prey animals have hard shells or thick hides. Turtles, caimans, armadillos all require a predator that can break through defenses other cats would struggle with. The jaguar's bite force, measured at over 1,500 pounds per square inch, allows it to exploit these otherwise protected food sources. But the jaguar is also a cat of stealth and patience. It stalks silently, moving through the undergrowth or along riverbanks, watching, waiting for the perfect moment. When it strikes, it's with overwhelming force and precision. And then, just as quickly, it disappears back into the forest, a shadow among shadows, leaving only tracks in the mud and the memory of power. The poison dart frog's colors warn predators, bright, bold, and unmistakable. The colors of poison dart frogs are not accidental. They're advertisements, visual warnings that say, "Do not eat me." This is called aposematic coloration, and it's a strategy used by many toxic animals. The brighter and more contrasting the colors, the easier it is for predators to learn the association between appearance and danger. Young predators, those encountering a poison dart frog for the first time, may attempt to eat one. But the experience, if it doesn't kill them, is unpleasant enough that they remember. The next time they see those colors, they avoid the frog entirely. Over generations, this learned behavior spreads through predator populations, creating a kind of cultural knowledge. Bright colors mean danger. Not all brightly colored frogs are toxic. Some species mimic the appearance of poisonous frogs without producing toxins themselves, a strategy called Batesian mimicry. They benefit from the reputation of their toxic cousins, enjoying protection without the metabolic cost of producing poison. It's a reminder that in nature, appearance can be as powerful as reality, and survival often depends on what others believe, not just what's true. The emerald tree. Boa is perfectly camouflaged, coiled on a branch high above the forest floor. The emerald tree boa is almost invisible. Its scales are a brilliant green, matching the leaves around it so perfectly that even trained eyes can miss it. White markings along its back break up its outline, making it harder to recognize as a snake. It remains motionless for hours, sometimes days, waiting for prey to pass within striking distance. The emerald tree boa is a constrictor, feeding primarily on birds, lizards, and small mammals. Its head is large relative to its body, with heat-sensing pits along its jaw that detect the infrared radiation emitted by warm-blooded prey. Even in complete darkness, the snake can see the heat signature of a bird or bat and strike with precision. Young emerald tree bows are born orange or red, a color that helps them blend with the lower levels of the forest where they spend their first months. As they mature and move into the canopy, their color gradually shifts to green, a transformation that takes months to complete. It's a life lived in stages, each one perfectly suited to its environment, from the forest floor to the high branches where sunlight filters through, and life hangs in the balance. The Amazon rainforest produces 6% of Earth's oxygen. It's often said that the Amazon produces 20% of the world's oxygen, but the reality is more nuanced. The forest does produce vast amounts of oxygen through photosynthesis, but it also consumes a significant portion of that oxygen through respiration, decomposition, and the metabolic activity of countless organisms. The net contribution is closer to 6 to 9% of global oxygen production. Still, this is significant, and more importantly, the Amazon plays a critical role in regulating atmospheric carbon dioxide, absorbing billions of tons each year and storing it in biomass and soil. This carbon storage is far more important for climate regulation than oxygen production, as oxygen levels in the atmosphere are relatively stable, while carbon dioxide levels are rising rapidly due to human activity. The Amazon matters not because it's the sole source of our breath, but because it's a stabilizer, a buffer against the imbalances we've created. It's a living system that absorbs our excesses, filters our pollution, and maintains the delicate equilibrium that makes Earth habitable. And every tree that falls, every hectare that burns, weakens that system a little more. 3-toed sloths descend from trees. Just once a week, the 3-toed sloth lives almost entirely in the canopy, moving from branch to branch with slow, deliberate grace. Its diet consists mainly of leaves, which provide little energy and take a long time to digest. This low-energy lifestyle means the sloth must conserve every calorie, moving slowly, sleeping up to 20 hours a day, and descending to the ground only when absolutely necessary. That necessity comes once a week, when the sloth climbs down from its tree to defecate. It's a dangerous journey. On the ground, the sloth is vulnerable, slow, and nearly defenseless. Predators like jaguars and harpy eagles know this, and they watch for sloths making their descent. Yet the sloth persists in this risky behavior, carefully digging a small hole at the base of its preferred tree, depositing its waste and covering it before climbing back up. Why take the risk? Scientists believe it helps fertilize the tree that feeds the sloth, maintaining the cycle of nutrients that keeps the tree healthy. It may also help spread the moths and beetles that live in the sloth's fur, which lay their eggs in the dung. The sloth, the tree, the moths, all are connected in a web of mutual dependence, each one playing a role in the other's survival. The Amazon is home to uncontacted tribes deep in the most remote regions of the Amazon. There are people who have never been contacted by the outside world. These uncontacted tribes live as their ancestors have for thousands of years, hunting, fishing, gathering, and moving through the forest with knowledge passed down through generations. They're not lost or isolated by accident. They've chosen to remain apart, and their right to do so is increasingly recognized and protected. Estimates suggest there may be over 100 uncontacted tribes remaining in the Amazon. though exact numbers are impossible to verify. Some have been observed from aircraft, their villages photographed from above, but no direct contact has been made. Governments and organizations work to protect their territories from illegal logging, mining, and encroachment, recognizing that contact often brings disease, violence, and cultural destruction. These tribes are the Amazon's original inhabitants, the keepers of knowledge about the forest that no scientist or explorer can replicate. They know which plants heal, which animals to hunt, how to read the weather and the seasons. They are part of the forest's diversity, as essential as any species of tree or bird. And their continued existence is a reminder that the Amazon is not empty wilderness. It's home. The Amazon River supports over 3,000 species of fish. The Amazon River and its tributaries are home to more species of fish than any other river system on Earth. Scientists have identified over 3,000 species so far, and new ones are discovered regularly. This diversity rivals that of the entire oceans, all contained within a single river basin. The fish range from the massive arapaima to tiny tetras barely an inch long. There are electric fish, armored catfish, transparent glassfish, and fish that breathe air. Some are herbivores, feeding on fruits and seeds that fall into the water. Others are predators, hunting in packs or lying in ambush. And still others are scavengers, cleaning the river of dead and decaying matter. This diversity is made possible by the complexity of the river itself. Different tributaries have different chemistries, temperatures, and flow rates. Flooded forests create seasonal habitats. Rapids, pools, and slow-moving backwaters each support distinct communities. The Amazon River is not one environment but thousands, each with its own cast of characters, all flowing together toward the sea. The nighttime Amazon is a symphony of sound. As the sun sets and darkness settles over the forest, the Amazon transforms. The daytime chorus of bird calls fades, replaced by a rising tide of sound that builds until it seems to come from everywhere at once. Frogs begin to call, thousands of them, each species with its own voice. Some croak, others whistle, trill, or chirp. Insects join in, cicadas buzzing, crickets chirping, beetles clicking. From the canopy come howler monkeys, their calls so loud they can be heard for miles, deep roaring sounds that resonate through the trees. Nightbirds add their songs, and bats swoop through the darkness. Their echolocation clicks too high for human ears, but essential to their navigation. The forest is never silent, but at night, it becomes something more. A layered, overlapping symphony of life communicating, competing, and calling out into the dark. For those who sleep beneath this canopy, the sounds are constant, a reminder that the forest never rests. Even in darkness, it's alive, pulsing with activity, a world that functions just as fully when we can't see it. And in that ceaseless chorus, there's a kind of comfort, the knowledge that life continues, breath by breath, call by call, all through the night. The candiru fish seeks out gill cavities in the murky waters of the Amazon, swims a fish surrounded by myth and misunderstanding. The candiru is a tiny parasitic catfish, translucent and eel-like, rarely longer than a few inches. It seeks out the gills of larger fish, wedging itself inside and feeding on blood. The fish has backward-pointing spines that anchor it in place, making removal difficult for its host. Stories about the candiru attacking humans are largely exaggerated, born from fear and misunderstanding rather than documented cases. The fish is real, and its parasitic lifestyle is remarkable, but it poses little threat to people. What's more interesting is how it finds its hosts in water, where visibility is nearly zero. Scientists believe the candiru detects chemicals released by fish gills. Following the trail upstream to its target, once attached, the candiru feeds quickly, then detaches and drifts away, searching for its next meal. It's a life of darkness and blood, lived in the spaces between larger lives, a reminder that even in the Amazon, not every creature is grand or beautiful. Some are simply strange, shaped by evolution into forms that serve a single specific purpose. Vampire bats share blood, with colony members among the creatures of the Amazon night. The vampire bat carries one of the most evocative names. These small mammals do feed on blood, usually from livestock, birds, or occasionally wild animals. They make a small incision with razor-sharp teeth and lap up the blood that flows, their saliva containing anticoagulants that keep the wound from clotting. But what's most remarkable about vampire bats isn't their diet, it's their altruism. If a bat fails to feed on a given night, it risks starvation. But other members of the colony, those that fed successfully, will regurgitate blood to share with the hungry individual. This sharing happens between relatives, but also between unrelated bats that have built relationships over time. Bats remember who has helped them and who hasn't, and they reciprocate accordingly. It's a form of cooperation rarely seen in nature, built on memory, trust, and the understanding that survival sometimes depends on others. In the darkness of a hollow tree, vampire bats huddle together, grooming, sharing, and ensuring that the colony endures, one meal at a time. The forest creates its own soil walk through the Amazon, and you might notice something surprising. The soil is poor, thin, and nutrient deficient. In many places, it's clay-like, reddish, and acidic, lacking the rich, dark earth you'd expect beneath such lush vegetation. How does such abundant life grow from such meager soil? The answer is that the forest doesn't rely on the ground beneath it. It creates its own. Nutrients in the Amazon exist not in the soil, but in the living biomass. The trees, the plants, the animals, and the layer of decomposing matter on the forest floor. When a leaf falls, it doesn't have time to enrich the soil. It's broken down within weeks by fungi, bacteria, and insects, and its nutrients are quickly reabsorbed by roots waiting just beneath the surface. The forest recycles almost everything, holding nutrients in a tight, efficient loop. This is why cleared rainforest land often becomes unproductive farmland within a few years. The fertility was never in the soil. It was in the forest itself, in the constant cycling of life and death, growth and decay. Remove the trees, and you remove the system that made abundance possible. What remains is only earth waiting. River turtles navigate using Earth's magnetic field. Each year, river turtles in the Amazon migrate to specific beaches to lay their eggs. The journey can span hundreds of kilometers through winding rivers, shifting currents, and changing water levels. Yet the turtles return to the same beaches, sometimes to within a few meters of where they themselves hatched. How do they navigate with such precision? Scientists believe they use Earth's magnetic field, detecting subtle variations that act like an internal map. This magnetoreception, paired with other cues like river chemistry and perhaps even celestial navigation, guides them home. It's a sense humans lack entirely, but for turtles, it's as natural as sight or smell. When the females arrive, they dig nests in the sand, laying dozens of eggs before covering them and returning to the water. The eggs incubate in the warmth of the beach, and weeks later, hatchlings emerge, scrambling toward the river in a frantic race against predators. Those that survive will spend years in the water, growing, feeding, and one day, when the time comes, they too will feel the pull of that distant beach and begin the journey home. Bromeliads hold miniature ecosystems, high in the canopy, clinging to branches and trunks. Bromeliads collect rainwater in their central cups. These plants are epiphytes, growing on other plants without parasitizing them, drawing moisture and nutrients from the air and rain. But the water they hold doesn't sit empty. It becomes a world unto itself. Mosquito larvae wriggle in the water. Tadpoles develop, deposited there by frogs. Algae grows, feeding tiny crustaceans. Bacteria and protozoans thrive in the microscopic spaces. Each bromeliad is a miniature pond, suspended in the air, supporting a food web as complex as any on the ground. Some species depend entirely on these tiny reservoirs, never touching the forest floor or the river below. For the tree, the bromeliad is just another passenger. For the bromeliad, the tree is a platform reaching toward the light, and for the creatures that live in the water held between the plant's leaves, this is the entire world. A few liters of rainwater, filtered through leaves, warmed by the sun, and teeming with life. In the Amazon, even the smallest spaces are never truly empty. Basilisk lizards run across water, along riverbanks and near streams. The basilisk lizard lives a life of constant alertness. When threatened, it doesn't simply flee into the undergrowth. It runs across the water. Its hind legs slap the surface at high speed, creating pockets of air that support its weight for just long enough to carry it to safety. It can run several meters before sinking, often enough to reach the opposite bank or a low-hanging branch. This ability, sometimes called Jesus Christ lizard behavior, requires perfect timing and speed. The lizard's feet are long, with fringed toes that maximize surface area. Each step must hit with enough force to create support, but not so much that it breaks through. It's a balancing act, performed in fractions of a second, driven by instinct and the urgent need to escape. Young basilisks are lighter and can run farther. Adults, heavier and less buoyant, manage only a few steps before swimming the rest of the way. But even a few steps can mean the difference between life and death, between the jaws of a predator and the safety of the far shore. And in those brief moments, skittering across the surface of the river, the basilisk seems to defy not just gravity, but possibility itself. The forest floor is home to decomposers beneath the drama of the canopy and the flow of the river. Another world works in quiet obscurity. The forest floor, dark and damp, is where death becomes life again. Here, decomposers rule. Fungi, bacteria, beetles, termites, and countless microorganisms breaking down fallen leaves, dead wood, and animal remains. Fungi send out thread-like hyphae, weaving through decaying matter and releasing enzymes that dissolve complex molecules. Beetles bore into logs, chewing tunnels that expose the wood to further decay. Termites carry fragments underground, processing them in their guts with the help of symbiotic bacteria. And through it all, bacteria work at the molecular level, transforming proteins, cellulose, and lignin into simpler compounds that roots can absorb. This is the engine of the forest, invisible but essential. Without decomposers, nutrients would remain locked in dead tissue, unavailable to the living. Trees would starve, growth would slow, the forest would choke on its own waste. But instead, death feeds life, and the cycle continues, driven by creatures too small to see and too numerous to count. Orchid bees are iridescent pollinators. Among the thousands of bee species in the Amazon, orchid bees stand out for their stunning appearance. They shimmer in shades of metallic green, blue, gold, and purple. Their bodies glinting like jewels as they move from flower to flower. But they're not just beautiful. They're essential pollinators, particularly for orchids, which have evolved alongside them for millions of years. Male orchid bees collect fragrances from flowers and other sources, storing them in specialized pouches on their hind legs. These scents are used during courtship displays, attracting females with complex chemical signals. The bees remember which flowers produce the best scents and return to them repeatedly, learning and adapting their routes over time. Some orchids mimic the scents that orchid bees seek, luring them in without offering any reward. The bee arrives, searches for the scent source, and in the process, gets covered in pollen. Frustrated, it flies to another flower, repeating the process and pollinating the orchid, despite receiving nothing in return. It's manipulation, refined over evolutionary time, a quiet deception practiced in the dappled light of the canopy. The Amazon manatee is entirely freshwater. Unlike its coastal cousins, the Amazon manatee lives its entire life in fresh water, never venturing into the sea. It's the smallest of the manatee species. Gentle and slow-moving, grazing on aquatic plants in rivers, lakes, and flooded forests. Its body is streamlined, with flippers that allow it to navigate through submerged vegetation, and a tail that propels it forward with lazy, deliberate strokes. During the dry season, when water levels drop, manatees retreat to deeper channels and lakes, sometimes going months without eating. They survive on stored fat, their metabolism slowing as they wait for the rains to return. When the floods come, they disperse back into the flooded forest, where food is abundant and they can feed uninterrupted. Manatees have no natural predators in the Amazon, but they face threats from humans, hunting, boat strikes, and habitat loss. Conservation efforts have helped stabilize populations in some areas, but the manatee remains elusive, rarely seen, drifting through dark water like a living shadow, quiet and unassuming. Epiphytes cover every available surface. In the Amazon, space is at a premium. Every surface, every branch, every patch of bark becomes real estate for plants that don't need soil. These epiphytes, also called air plants, include orchids, bromeliads, ferns, mosses, and lichens. They grow on trees, not as parasites, but as tenants, using the tree only for support while gathering water and nutrients from rain and air. A single tree can host hundreds of epiphyte species, creating vertical gardens that add layers of complexity to the canopy. Some epiphytes have specialized roots that absorb moisture from humid air. Others collect rainwater in leaves or cups. Still others form symbiotic relationships with ants, which bring them nutrients in exchange for shelter. The weight of epiphytes can be substantial, sometimes adding tons to a tree's load. Yet trees tolerate them, even benefit from them, as the epiphytes provide habitat for insects, frogs, and birds that help control pests or disperse seeds. In the crowded world of the canopy, cooperation and competition exist side by side, and every organism finds a way to carve out space in the vertical jungle. Poison dart frogs have complex mating rituals. Courtship among poison dart frogs is subtle and intricate. Males call from the forest floor or from elevated perches, their voices surprisingly loud for such small creatures. Each species has its own call, a series of chirps, trills, or buzzes that carry through the humid air. Females listen, assessing the quality of the calls, the persistence of the male, and the suitability of the territory he's defending. When a female approaches, the male may lead her on a tour of his territory, showing her potential egg-laying sites. She follows, carefully evaluating his offerings. If she's satisfied, she lays a small clutch of eggs, usually fewer than 10, in a moist spot on a leaf or in leaf litter. The male then fertilizes them, and his parental duties begin. Some species show extraordinary care. Males guard the eggs, keeping them moist and free from fungus. Others carry tadpoles to water, as we've seen. A few species even exhibit biparental care, with both mother and father contributing to the survival of their offspring. In a world where most amphibians lay hundreds or thousands of eggs and provide no care at all, poison dart frogs are anomalies, investing deeply in a few carefully tended young. Toucans regulate body temperature through their bills. The toucan's bill is one of nature's most iconic features, large, colourful, and seemingly impractical. But the bill serves many purposes, from reaching fruit on thin branches to intimidating rivals and attracting mates. Recently, scientists discovered another function: thermoregulation. The bill is filled with blood vessels and has a thin outer layer, making it an efficient heat exchanger. When the toucan is too warm, it increases blood flow to the bill, releasing heat into the air. When it's cold, it reduces blood flow, conserving warmth. The bill acts like a radiator, helping the bird maintain a stable body temperature without expending energy on panting or shivering. This is particularly useful in the rainforest, where temperatures can fluctuate and humidity makes it difficult to cool down through evaporation. The toucan, perched in the canopy with its extravagant bill, is not just showing off. It's managing its internal climate, using the same structure for display, feeding, and survival, a multi-tool sculpted by evolution. The jaguar is a cultural symbol. Across Amazonian peoples, for the indigenous peoples of the Amazon, the jaguar is more than an animal. It's a symbol woven into mythology, spirituality, and identity. In many cultures, shamans are believed to transform into jaguars, walking between the human and spirit worlds. The jaguar represents power, protection, and the mysteries of the forest. Art, carvings, pottery, and textiles across the Amazon feature jaguar motifs, often stylized into patterns that echo the cat's spotted coat. Stories tell of jaguars as ancestors, teachers, or guardians of sacred places. To kill a jaguar was, in some traditions, a rite of passage, but also a somber act, taken only when necessary and accompanied by ritual and respect. Even today, the jaguar holds cultural significance. Conservation efforts increasingly involve indigenous communities, whose traditional knowledge and deep connection to the land make them essential partners in protecting the species. The jaguar's survival is tied not just to habitat preservation, but to the survival of cultures that have lived alongside it for thousands of years. Some snakes give birth to live young. Most snakes lay eggs, but in the Amazon, several species give birth to live young. The boa constrictor, the anaconda, and many pit vipers are viviparous, meaning the embryos develop inside the mother's body, nourished by a yolk sac. When the time comes, she gives birth to fully formed, independent offspring, sometimes dozens at once. This adaptation has advantages in the rainforest. Eggs left in the humid environment are vulnerable to predators, flooding, and fungal infections. By retaining the young inside her body, the mother provides protection and a stable environment until they're ready to face the world. The downside is the physical burden. A pregnant female is slower, more vulnerable, and must eat for many. After birth, the mother offers no further care. The young snakes scatter, instinctively equipped to hunt, hide, and survive. They're miniature versions of their parents, already possessing venom or constriction abilities, already capable of killing. In the Amazon, even the newborns are formidable, born ready for a world that offers no mercy. The Amazon has floating meadows. During the wet season, vast areas of the Amazon floodplain are covered not with trees, but with grasses and aquatic plants. These floating meadows drift on the surface, their roots dangling in the water, absorbing nutrients. Their entire ecosystems, supporting insects, fish, birds, and mammals. Capybaras graze on the edges. Caimans hunt from below. Herons and egrets stalk through the shallow water, spearing fish and frogs. And beneath the surface, young fish hide among the tangled roots, finding shelter from larger predators. When the water recedes, these meadows collapse onto the mudflats, decomposing and enriching the soil for the next cycle. The floating meadows are temporary, existing only during the flood season, but they're productive, generating enormous amounts of biomass in just a few months. They're a reminder that the Amazon is not static. It pulses with the seasons, expanding and contracting, flooding and drying, constantly reshaping itself in response to rain and river. Army ants have no eyes. The millions of army ants marching through the forest are blind. Most species have no eyes at all, or possess only simple light sensors that can distinguish between day and night. They navigate entirely through chemical signals, following pheromone trails laid down by scouts and reinforced by every ant that passes. This blindness is not a disadvantage. In the dim understory and the absolute darkness of the colony's bivouac, vision would be useless. Instead, the ants rely on touch and smell, their antennae constantly probing, sensing vibrations, detecting chemicals, and communicating with nestmates through subtle chemical exchanges. The coordination that emerges from millions of blind individuals following simple rules is staggering. The colony behaves like a single organism, with raiding parties, defensive formations, and foraging strategies that adapt to circumstances in real time. No ant understands the whole. Each follows local cues, and from that follows complexity, intelligence without a brain, sight without eyes. The fer de lance is one of the Amazon's deadliest snakes, coiled in leaf litter or draped over low branches. The fer de lance waits with the patience of stone. It's one of the most dangerous snakes in the Amazon, responsible for more bites than any other species. Its venom is hemotoxic, destroying tissue and blood cells, causing severe pain, swelling, and, without treatment, potential death. The snake is an ambush predator, relying on camouflage and stillness. Its brown and tan pattern blends perfectly with fallen leaves and dappled sunlight. It strikes only when prey comes within range, or when a human accidentally steps too close. The bite is fast, almost invisible, and the venom begins its work immediately. Despite its danger, the fer de lance plays an important role in controlling rodent populations. It hunts rats, mice, and other small mammals that would otherwise overrun farms and villages. People fear it, respect it, and live cautiously in places where it's common. And the snake, for its part, asks only to be left alone, hidden in the leaves, waiting for the next meal to wander past. Dolphins use tools to hunt. In some tributaries of the Amazon, river dolphins have been observed using a surprising technique. They break off pieces of river sponge and hold them in their mouths while foraging along the riverbed. The sponge protects their sensitive snouts from sharp rocks, spines, and stinging creatures hidden in the sediment. This is tool use, a behavior once thought unique to primates and a few bird species. The dolphins learn it from their mothers, passing the technique down through generations. Not all dolphins use sponges, and those that do tend to be related, suggesting that it's a cultural behavior localized to certain family groups. The discovery challenges assumptions about intelligence and culture in non-primate species. Dolphins, already known for their complex social behaviors and vocalizations, continue to surprise researchers. And in the murky waters of the Amazon, where visibility is near zero, they've found a way to extend their senses, using objects from their environment as extensions of their own bodies. The rainforest canopy has its own climate climb into the canopy of the Amazon, and you enter a different world. The temperature is higher, sometimes by several degrees. The humidity is lower. Wind moves through the branches, something rarely felt on the forest floor. Sunlight is abundant, intense, and unfiltered. Plants and animals that live here are adapted to conditions that would stress or kill species just meters below. Leaves in the canopy are often smaller, thicker, and waxy, designed to reduce water loss. Many produce compounds that reflect excess sunlight, protecting them from damage. Insects here face desiccation, and many are active only during the cooler hours of dawn and dusk. Birds time their activities around temperature, feeding when conditions allow and retreating to shade during the hottest parts of the day. This vertical stratification creates distinct zones, each with its own community of species. The canopy is not just higher than the understory. It's fundamentally different, shaped by light, heat, and wind into an environment that demands different strategies for survival. And in that difference, the forest finds even more ways to diversify, stacking ecosystems on top of one another like floors in a vast living tower. Wasps build paper nests from chewed wood, hanging from branches and tucked beneath leaves. Wasp nests are architectural marvels. The wasps chew wood fibers, mixing them with saliva to create a pulp that dries into a paper-like material. Layer by layer, they build hexagonal cells, constructing nurseries for their larvae and storage chambers for food. Some nests are small, housing just a few dozen individuals. Others are enormous, containing thousands of wasps and spanning multiple feet. The paper is surprisingly strong, resistant to rain and wind, and the structure is often camouflaged, blending with bark or leaves. Inside, the colony functions with precision, workers tending larvae, foraging for insects, and defending the nest from intruders. Wasps are often feared, but they're also essential predators, controlling populations of caterpillars, and other plant-eating insects. They pollinate flowers, disperse seeds, and provide food for birds and other predators. And their nests, intricate and fragile, are reminders that even the smallest creatures can be builders, engineers, architects working in miniature. The Amazon has glowing mushrooms. In the darkness of the forest floor, a faint green glow appears. Bioluminescent mushrooms, fed by decaying wood and leaf litter, emit light through a chemical reaction involving luciferin and oxygen. The glow is soft, eerie, and beautiful, visible only in complete darkness. Scientists aren't entirely sure why these mushrooms glow. One theory is that the light attracts insects, which then spread spores as they investigate. Another is that it's a byproduct of metabolism, with no particular advantage, a side effect of chemistry rather than adaptation. Or perhaps it deters predators, signaling that the mushroom is toxic or distasteful. Whatever the reason, the effect is otherworldly. Patches of forest glow softly in the night, as if the earth itself is breathing light. For travelers and researchers spending nights in the jungle, these glowing mushrooms are moments of magic, small constellations on the forest floor, proof that even in darkness, the Amazon finds ways to shine. Piranhas communicate through sound. Beneath the surface, piranhas are not silent. They produce sounds by vibrating their swim bladders, creating clicks, grunts, and drumming noises. These sounds serve multiple purposes: warning rivals, attracting mates, and coordinating group behavior. Different sounds convey different messages, a vocabulary built from vibrations. When threatened, piranhas produce aggressive sounds, low-frequency pulses that signal dominance or readiness to fight. During feeding frenzies, the sounds intensify, creating a chaotic underwater chorus. And during courtship, males produce softer, rhythmic sounds, attempting to attract females and assert their fitness. This acoustic communication adds another layer to the piranha's reputation. They're not mindless eating machines. They're social, communicative, and strategic, using sound to navigate a world where visibility is limited and interactions are constant. The river, it turns out, is not silent. It hums with voices, both above and below the surface. The tamandua is a tree-dwelling anteater high in the branches. Moving with deliberate slowness, the tamandua searches for its next meal. It's a smaller relative of the giant anteater, adapted for life in the trees. Its tail is prehensile, gripping branches for balance. Its claws are long and curved, perfect for tearing into tree bark and ant nests. The tamandua feeds primarily on ants and termites, using its long, sticky tongue to extract insects from narrow tunnels. It can consume thousands in a single feeding session, carefully avoiding soldier ants with painful bites or stings. When threatened, the tamandua rears up on its hind legs, spreading its arms wide to appear larger, and releases a foul-smelling musk from glands near its tail. Despite its ungainly appearance, the tamandua is an effective climber, moving confidently through the canopy and descending to the ground only when necessary. It's solitary, mostly nocturnal, and rarely seen. But its role in controlling ant and termite populations makes it an important, if overlooked, part of the forest balance. The Amazon River reverses its gradient. In most rivers, water flows downhill, from high elevations to low, driven by gravity. But during the wet season, when the Amazon's tributaries swell with rain, something unusual happens. The gradient reverses in some areas, and water flows uphill, back into smaller streams and wetlands. This happens because the main channel fills faster than the tributaries can drain. The pressure from the rising water forces it backward, flooding areas that were dry weeks before. Fish, adapted to this cycle, migrate upstream into these newly flooded zones, feeding on fruits, seeds, and insects. When the water recedes, they return to the main river, carrying nutrients with them. This reversal is part of the Amazon's rhythm, a pulse that connects the river to the forest, the flood to the dry season, the living to the land. It's a reminder that water here doesn't follow simple rules. It bends, reverses, and adapts, shaped by forces larger than itself. Leaf litter is centimeters deep walk through the Amazon, and your feet sink into a soft carpet of decomposing leaves, twigs, bark, and organic matter. This leaf litter, sometimes several centimeters deep, is constantly being added to from above and broken down from below. It's a layer of transition, where the forest's waste becomes its wealth. The litter is home to countless invertebrates, millipedes, beetles, ants, spiders, and more. They chew, burrow, and process the organic material, breaking it into smaller pieces. Fungi and bacteria complete the job, releasing nutrients back into the soil where roots wait to absorb them. The cycle is fast, efficient, and essential. In temperate forests, leaf litter can accumulate for years. In the Amazon, it's consumed almost as quickly as it falls. The forest is hungry, constantly feeding on itself, recycling every scrap of energy and matter. And beneath your feet, invisible but ever present, the machinery of decomposition hums along, turning death into life, over and over again. The peccary travels in herds. Crashing through the undergrowth, a herd of peccaries moves like a living wave. These pig-like mammals travel in groups of 50 to 100 individuals, sometimes more, foraging for roots, fruits, nuts, and small animals. They communicate with grunts, clicks, and teeth chattering, maintaining cohesion as they move through the forest. Peccaries are aggressive when cornered, using their sharp tusks to defend themselves against predators. Jaguars and pumas hunt them, but a cornered herd can drive off even these formidable predators. The herd functions as both protection and social structure, with individuals grooming each other, sharing food, and cooperating to raise young. When peccaries move through an area, they leave an impact. They root up soil, disperse seeds, and create pathways through dense vegetation. Some researchers call them ecosystem engineers, species whose behavior shapes the environment for others. And in the sound of their passage, the forest is reminded that not all life here is quiet. Some of it thunders. The morpho butterfly's wings are not blue. The morpho butterfly is one of the Amazon's most iconic insects. Its wings are shimmering, iridescent blue that seems to glow even in shade. But that blue is an illusion. The wings contain no blue pigment. Instead, microscopic structures on the wing scales refract and reflect light, creating the appearance of color through physics rather than chemistry. This structural coloration is more vivid and durable than pigment-based color. It doesn't fade with age or exposure to sunlight, and it changes depending on the angle of view, flashing brightly when the butterfly is in motion and disappearing when it lands and closes its wings, revealing brown undersides that blend with bark and leaves. The blue serves multiple purposes. It attracts mates, confuses predators with its flickering appearance, and may even regulate temperature by reflecting heat. The morpho butterfly, drifting through the forest on wings of light, is a reminder that not everything is as it appears. Sometimes the most vivid truths are built from illusion. Herons hunt by standing still. Along riverbanks and in shallow pools, herons practice the art of patience. They stand motionless, sometimes for hours, legs submerged, eyes fixed on the water. They're waiting for fish, frogs, or crustaceans to swim within striking range. When the moment comes, the heron's head shoots forward with blinding speed, its beak piercing the water and seizing prey in an instant. This hunting strategy requires extraordinary stillness and focus. Any movement might alert the prey, sending it darting away. So the heron becomes a statue, part of the landscape, indistinguishable from the reeds and branches around it. Its patience is rewarded with food, and the cycle repeats. Different heron species specialize in different techniques. Some wade slowly, stirring the bottom to flush out prey. Others hunt at night, using their keen vision to spot movement in the dark. But all share that fundamental strategy: stillness, focus, and the sudden, explosive strike. In a world of motion, the heron finds success in being perfectly, utterly still. The forest breathes. At night, the Amazon releases carbon dioxide, the byproduct of respiration from billions of organisms. During the day, it absorbs carbon dioxide, using it for photosynthesis. This daily rhythm creates measurable fluctuations in atmospheric gas concentrations, detectable by satellites and sensors. The forest breathes, inhaling and exhaling day after day, year after year. This breath is not metaphorical. It's measurable, quantifiable, and essential. The forest exchanges gases with the atmosphere on a scale that influences regional and even global climate. It produces oxygen, absorbs carbon, releases moisture, and cycles nutrients through pathways both visible and invisible. To stand in the Amazon is to stand inside a living lung, to feel the humid air and know that it's filled with the exhalations of countless trees, the moisture of transpiration, the chemistry of life itself. The forest breathes, and in that breath, the planet finds balance. Fungi can zombify insects. In the dim understory, a carpenter ant climbs. His movements are jerky, unnatural. It ascends a plant stem, positions itself on the underside of a leaf, and bites down, locking its jaws in place. Then it dies. From its head, a fungal stalk emerges, growing upward, fruiting, and releasing spores into the air below. The ant was infected days earlier by Ophiocordyceps, a parasitic fungus that invades the insect's body and takes control of its behavior. The fungus manipulates the ant's nervous system, forcing it to climb to a specific height where temperature and humidity are optimal for fungal growth. Once positioned, the ant dies and the fungus consumes it from within. This is not rare. Across the Amazon, fungi infect ants, beetles, flies, and other insects, turning them into unwitting vehicles for spore dispersal. It's horrifying and fascinating, a reminder that in the forest, even behavior can be hijacked, even will can be overridden. The ant, in its final act, serves not itself but the fungus, a puppet on invisible strings. The ocelot is a nocturnal hunter, smaller than a jaguar but no less beautiful. The ocelot prowls the forest floor and low branches, hunting under cover of darkness. Its coat is a masterpiece of camouflage, covered in spots and stripes that break up its outline in the dappled light. It moves silently, each paw placed with precision, stalking rodents, birds, reptiles, and small mammals. Ocelots are solitary and territorial, marking their ranges with scent and defending them from rivals. They're excellent climbers, equally at home on the ground or in trees, and they swim when necessary, crossing rivers and streams without hesitation. Their eyes, adapted for night vision, gather every photon of available light, allowing them to hunt in near total darkness. Despite their prowess, ocelots face threats from habitat loss and hunting for their beautiful pelts. Conservation efforts have helped in some regions, but the ocelot remains elusive, a shadow among shadows, rarely seen but always present, a reminder that the night belongs to creatures we seldom meet. Waterfalls hide caves behind them. In the upper tributaries of the Amazon, where rivers cascade over ancient rock formations, waterfalls sometimes hide secrets. Behind the curtain of falling water, caves and grottos form, eroded over millennia by the relentless flow. These hidden spaces are cool, dim, and wet, sheltering bats, insects, and occasionally jaguars seeking refuge from the heat. The constant mist from the waterfall creates a unique microclimate. Mosses and ferns grow on the cave walls, fed by the moisture and indirect light. The sound is overwhelming, a thunderous roar that drowns out all other noise. And in the darkness beyond the falling water, the world feels removed, separate, a place where time moves differently. These caves are temporary on geological timescales. The river will eventually erode them away, carving new paths through the rock. But for now, they endure, hidden pockets of stillness behind the chaos of falling water, offering shelter and mystery in equal measure. The anaconda sheds its skin in one piece. Several times a year, as the anaconda grows, its skin becomes too tight. The solution is to shed it entirely, revealing a fresh layer beneath. The process begins with the snake's eyes clouding over as a fluid layer forms between the old and new skin. The snake becomes temporarily blind, vulnerable, and irritable. When ready, the anaconda rubs its snout against rough surfaces, loosening the old skin around its mouth. Then it slowly crawls forward, peeling the skin backward over its body like removing a sock. The shed skin emerges inside out, a perfect hollow replica of the snake, complete with eye scales. The whole process can take several hours, and afterward, the anaconda emerges brighter, its scales gleaming, its body ready to grow again. Shedding is essential for growth, healing, and removing parasites that cling to the old skin. And in the quiet waters where anacondas live, shed skins drift or settle on the bottom. Ghostly reminders of size and presence, evidence of the serpent that passed this way. The Hotsin chick has wing claws. When a Hotsin chick hatches in a nest overhanging water, it faces immediate danger. Predators prowl the branches, and a fall means certain death or predation. But the chick has a remarkable defense: claws on its wings. These small, sharp hooks, vestigial remnants from ancient reptilian ancestors, allow the chick to grip branches and climb back to safety if it falls or is forced to jump. If a snake or predatory bird threatens the nest, Hotsin chicks leap into the water below, swimming to safety and then using their wing claws to climb back up the vegetation to their nest. As the chicks mature and develop flight feathers, the claws disappear, absorbed back into the wing structure. By adulthood, they're gone entirely, needed only during that vulnerable period of youth. This trait is unique among modern birds, a glimpse into evolutionary history, a reminder that birds descended from clawed, climbing reptiles, and in the awkward, smelly Hotsin, that ancient heritage remains visible, functional, and life-saving. Leaf katydids perfectly mimic dead leaves perched motionless on a branch. A leaf katydid is nearly impossible to spot. Its body, wings, and legs are shaped and colored to resemble a dead, dried leaf, complete with brown coloration, tattered edges, and even fake veins running across the surface. Some species take it further, with spots that look like fungal growth or holes that mimic insect damage. This camouflage is so effective that predators walk past without noticing. The katydid remains still during the day, moving only at night when it's safer to feed on leaves and plant matter. Even its legs fold in ways that enhance the illusion, tucking against its body to eliminate any hint of insect shape. But the disguise isn't perfect. Experienced predators learn to recognize the subtle cues that betray the katydid's presence. A leg positioned slightly wrong, the faint gleam of an eye. And so, the evolutionary arms race continues, predator and prey locked in a dance of deception and detection, each generation refining its strategy. The dart frog's skin contains hundreds of alkaloids. A single poisoned dart frog skin can contain over 200 different toxic compounds, each with its own chemical structure and effect. Some attack the nervous system, causing paralysis. Others disrupt heart function or cause intense pain. Together, they create a chemical cocktail potent enough to deter almost any predator. These alkaloids come from the frog's diet, accumulated over time from ants, mites, and other small arthropods. The frog's body doesn't break down these toxins. Instead, it stores and concentrates them in specialized skin glands. This means the frog is essentially what it eats, a living repository of defensive chemicals collected from the forest floor. In captivity, where the diet is different, the frogs lose their toxicity within months. They're still colorful, still recognizable, but no longer dangerous. It's a reminder that identity in nature is not fixed. It's relational, built from interactions with the environment, shaped by what's consumed and what's absorbed. Trees compete for light with chemical warfare. In the dense forest, where light is scarce, trees compete not just by growing taller, but by sabotaging their neighbors. Some species release chemicals into the soil that inhibit the growth of nearby plants, a strategy called allelopathy. These compounds can prevent seeds from germinating, stunt root growth, or even kill young saplings. The black walnut tree, though not native to the Amazon, demonstrates this strategy clearly. In the Amazon, similar chemical warfare occurs, though it's subtler, harder to detect. Trees invest in compounds that give them competitive advantages, shaping the composition of the forest around them through invisible chemical influence. This competition creates a dynamic landscape where species rise and fall, not just through physical strength, but through chemistry. The forest is a battlefield, but the weapons are molecules dissolved in water, diffusing through soil, silent and lethal. The glass knife fish generates electric fields. In the murky waters where vision fails, the glass knife fish navigates using electricity. It generates a weak electric field around its body, then senses distortions in that field caused by nearby objects, other fish, or changes in water conductivity. This electroreception allows it to see in complete darkness, detecting prey, avoiding obstacles, and communicating with others of its kind. The fish produces electricity using specialized organs called electrocytes, similar to the electric eel but much weaker. The pulses are constant, creating a continuous field that updates in real time as the fish moves. Different species produce different frequencies, allowing them to coexist without interfering with each other's signals. At night, when the fish are most active, the water hums with these electric fields, invisible to humans but essential to the fish. It's a sensory world we can barely imagine, where shape and distance are perceived through the bending of electrical currents, where the river itself becomes a medium for information. The arapaima must surface to breathe. Despite being a fish, the arapaima relies more on air than water for oxygen. Its gills are small and inefficient, unable to extract enough oxygen from the oxygen-poor waters it inhabits. So every 10 to 20 minutes, the arapaima rises to the surface, opens its mouth and gulps air into a modified swim bladder that functions like a lung. This adaptation allows it to survive in flooded forests and stagnant pools where other fish would suffocate. But it also makes the arapaima vulnerable. The need to surface exposes it to predators and hunters who listen for the distinctive coughing sound it makes when breathing. Indigenous fishermen have used this behavior for generations, positioning themselves near known breathing spots and striking when the fish surfaces. The arapaima's reliance on air is both a strength and a weakness, an evolutionary trade-off that allows it to dominate certain habitats while making it dependent on access to the surface. In the balance between water and air, the arapaima has carved out its niche. The undergrowth is surprisingly open. Despite the Amazon's reputation for impenetrable jungle, the reality on the forest floor is different. The undergrowth is relatively open, easy to walk through in many areas. The dense tangle of vegetation exists primarily at the edges of clearings, along riverbanks, and in areas where light reaches the ground. This openness is a direct result of the canopy's effectiveness at blocking light. With so little reaching the floor, only shade-tolerant species can survive, and they grow slowly, creating space between individuals. Trails made by animals become pathways for humans, and experienced guides can move through the forest with relative ease. The image of explorers hacking through thick vegetation with machetes is more myth than reality for much of the deep forest. The real jungle, the interior where the canopy is intact, is a place of cathedral-like spaces, towering trunks, and an understory that's dim, humid, and surprisingly navigable. Fruit bats disperse seeds across miles. Each night, fruit bats leave their roosts and fly into the forest canopy to feed. They consume figs, mangoes, guavas, and dozens of other fruits, often carrying them away from the parent tree before eating. Seeds pass through their digestive systems unharmed, and hours later, the bats defecate mid-flight, scattering seeds across the forest. This seed dispersal is essential for forest regeneration. Some seeds can travel several miles from their parent tree, allowing plants to colonize new areas and maintain genetic diversity. Without bats, many tree species would struggle to reproduce, their seeds falling directly beneath the parent where competition for light and nutrients is fierce. Fruit bats are often misunderstood, feared for their association with disease or their rodent-like appearance. But they're gentle, essential, and industrious, working through the night to connect the forest, carrying life in their bellies and spreading it with every flight. The Amazon River once had giant crocodilians, millions of years ago, The Amazon was home to crocodilians that dwarfed anything alive today. Purosaurus, a caiman relative, reached lengths of over 40 feet and weighed several tons. Its skull alone was over 5 feet long, equipped with teeth designed to crush bone and tear flesh. It was an apex predator, capable of taking down almost anything that entered the water. Fossils of Purosaurus have been found throughout the Amazon basin, evidence that these giants once ruled these rivers. They likely fed on large mammals, turtles, and fish, sitting at the top of the food chain with no natural predators. But as the climate changed and prey populations shifted, these giants disappeared, leaving only their smaller descendants, the caimans we see today. The Amazon remembers its giants. In the sediment, in the fossils, in the very shape of the river system they once dominated. And sometimes, when a black caiman rises from the water, massive and ancient looking, it's easy to imagine what once was. Rubber trees produce latex to heal wounds. When a rubber tree is cut, it bleeds. White latex oozes from the wound, sticky and quick-setting. This latex is the tree's defense mechanism, sealing cuts, preventing infection, and deterring insects that might try to feed on the damaged tissue. The latex contains enzymes and compounds that are toxic to many organisms, protecting the tree as it heals. Humans discovered that this latex, when processed, becomes elastic and waterproof, leading to the rubber boom of the 19th and early 20th centuries. Entire economies were built on tapping these trees, extracting the latex without killing them, harvesting the forest chemistry for industrial use. Today, most rubber comes from plantations in Asia, but wild rubber trees still stand in the Amazon, bleeding white when cut, healing themselves in the slow, patient way of trees. What was once survival strategy became commodity, and the tree that evolved to seal its wounds ended up sealing envelopes, boots, and tires across the world. Sloths have extra neck vertebrae. Most mammals, from mice to giraffes, have 7 neck vertebrae. It's one of the stable features of mammalian anatomy. But sloths break this rule. 3-toed sloths have 9 neck vertebrae, giving them the ability to rotate their heads 270 degrees like owls. This extra flexibility allows them to survey their surroundings without moving their bodies, conserving energy while staying alert to predators. They can look directly behind themselves, monitor threats from below, and track the movement of branches and other sloths, all while remaining nearly motionless. It's a small adaptation, but significant. In the canopy, where movement attracts attention and energy is precious, the ability to look around without shifting position is valuable. The sloth, hanging upside down, can watch the world from every angle. Its extra vertebrae, a quiet rebellion against the constraints of mammalian anatomy. The kapok tree produces seed pods that explode when the dry season arrives. Kapok trees release their seeds in dramatic fashion. Large pods developed over months suddenly split open with audible cracks, scattering seeds equipped with silky fibers that catch the wind. These fibers, light and buoyant, carry the seeds far from the parent tree, sometimes for miles. The fibers were once used to stuff life jackets, pillows, and mattresses, valued for their water resistance and insulating properties. But synthetic materials have largely replaced them, and the kapok's fibers now serve only their original purpose, dispersal. The wind carries them across the canopy, over rivers, into clearings where they settle and, if conditions allow, germinate. A single tree can produce thousands of seeds each season, but only a few will survive to maturity. The rest become food, fail to germinate, or land in unsuitable locations. But for those few that succeed, the reward is immense. A chance to become one of the forest's giants, towering over the canopy for centuries. Catfish walk on land. During the dry season, when ponds and streams shrink and disappear, some catfish in the Amazon face a choice: stay and die or move. Incredibly, some species choose to move, using their pectoral fins to walk across land in search of water. They wriggle, push, and propel themselves forward, breathing air through modified gills and skin. The walking catfish can survive out of water for hours, even days, as long as it stays moist. It navigates by sensing humidity gradients, moving toward areas where moisture is higher, where water might still exist. The journey is slow, exhausting, and dangerous, exposing the fish to predators and desiccation. But it's better than the alternative. When the rains return and the ponds refill, the catfish that survived the walk resume their aquatic lives, feeding, breeding, and waiting for the next dry season. It's a remarkable adaptation, a testament to the creativity of evolution, and a reminder that even the boundaries between land and water are not absolute. The poison dart frog is a devoted parent. After laying eggs, many poison dart frog species don't abandon them. The male guards the clutch, keeping it moist with water from his own body and defending it from predators. When the tadpoles hatch, he allows them to wriggle onto his back, then carries them up into the canopy to find bromeliads with water-filled cups. The female's role is equally important. She returns to each tadpole regularly, laying unfertilized eggs into the water as food. Without these eggs, the tadpoles would starve. As the tiny pools contain little natural food, this parental investment is extraordinary, requiring weeks of dedicated care and repeated trips through the canopy. The result is a higher survival rate for the offspring. Instead of laying hundreds of eggs and hoping a few survive, poison dart frogs lay fewer eggs and invest deeply in each one. It's a different strategy, one that requires time, energy, and memory. But in the dense, competitive world of the rainforest, it works. The river dolphin's sonar is incredibly precise. The Amazon river dolphin navigates a world of zero visibility, where silt and tannins stain the water black. Vision is useless, so the dolphin relies entirely on echolocation, sending out clicks and listening for the echoes that bounce back. The returning sound reveals shape, distance, texture, and even the internal structure of objects. The dolphin's sonar is so precise it can distinguish between different species of fish, detect objects smaller than a coin, and navigate through submerged forests at speed without collision. The clicks are rapid, sometimes hundreds per second, creating a constant stream of information that the dolphin's brain processes in real time. This biological sonar is more sophisticated than most human-made systems, refined over millions of years of evolution. And in the dark waters of the Amazon, where sight fails and the environment shifts daily, echolocation is not just useful, it's essential. The primary sense through which the dolphin experiences reality. Termites cultivate antibiotic-producing bacteria. Inside termite mounds, fungus gardens are vulnerable to disease. Competing fungi and bacteria can invade, destroying the colony's food source and threatening survival. To prevent this, termites cultivate bacteria on their own bodies that produce antibiotics, natural compounds that kill harmful microorganisms. The termites spread these bacteria throughout the fungus garden, maintaining a protective chemical shield. It's a three-way symbiosis. The termites provide food and shelter for the fungus provides food for the termites, and the bacteria protect the fungus from disease. Each partner depends on the others, and the system functions only when all three are present. This discovery has implications for human medicine. Scientists study these termite-cultivated bacteria, hoping to find new antibiotics that might combat drug-resistant infections. The termite mound, dark and humid, may hold keys to solving problems that plague human health. And once again, the Amazon offers gifts we're only beginning to understand. The forest creates its own rain clouds. Late in the afternoon, as the sun warms the canopy, enormous clouds build above the Amazon. These aren't weather systems moving in from elsewhere. They're created by the forest itself, formed from the moisture transpired by billions of trees. The clouds tower upward, sometimes reaching heights of 40,000 feet or more, dark and heavy with rain. By evening, the clouds burst, releasing torrential downpours that drench the forest below. The rain feeds the trees, which release more moisture, which forms more clouds, perpetuating the cycle. The forest doesn't just receive weather, it creates it, participating actively in the atmospheric processes that govern the region. This self-sustaining system is fragile. Remove too many trees, and the cycle weakens. Less moisture rises, fewer clouds form, less rain falls, and the forest dries. It's a tipping point that scientists warn about, a threshold beyond which the Amazon might not be able to maintain itself. The forest breathes weather into existence, but only as long as it remains intact. And so, as we come to the end of this journey, let your mind rest in the vastness of the Amazon. All these facts, all these creatures, all these quiet miracles of adaptation and survival, they continue without us. Right now, as you lie here listening, the forest breathes. Rain falls on leaves. A jaguar pads along a riverbank. A sloth reaches for another branch. The river flows endless and ancient, carrying sediment, fish, and the memory of mountains toward the sea. The Amazon is not a museum. It's not frozen in time, preserved for our admiration. It's alive, dynamic, changing with every season, every rainfall, every seed that sprouts, and every tree that falls. It's a conversation between earth, water, air, and life, conducted in languages we're only beginning to understand. And it will continue this conversation long after we're gone, if we let it. Perhaps tonight, something you heard will stay with you. A pink dolphin, a tree that makes its own weather, ants that farm in the dark. Or perhaps it will all drift away like leaves on water, settling somewhere deep where wonder lives quietly, shaping how you see the world in ways you might not notice. Either way, the Amazon has touched you, and you've touched it, if only with your attention, your curiosity, your willingness to listen. Thank you for spending this time here, in this space between waking and sleeping, between knowing and dreaming. The world is vast and strange and beautiful, and the Amazon holds so many of its secrets. There's always more to discover, more to learn, more reasons to protect what remains. For now, let your breathing deepen, let your thoughts settle, let the sounds of the forest fade into the background of your mind, becoming part of your own night, your own rest. Sleep well, knowing that somewhere the Amazon is alive, breathing, flowing, growing in the darkness. And tomorrow, if you wish, you can return. The forest will still be there, waiting with more stories, more wonders, more quiet miracles than anyone could hear in a lifetime. Good night.